It was never supposed to end like this. Not after everything he gave up. Not after the crown, the country, the family, all for her. That's how one insider began describing the emotional storm brewing behind the walls of the Sussex's Montecito mansion. A storm, they say, that has now reached critical mass. Because while the world was busy watching Meghan launch a lifestyle brand, quietly signing Hollywood deals, and smiling through filtered Instagram posts, something else was unraveling. Something much more fragile. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Their marriage. And now, Prince Harry has made a huge announcement. One that no one saw coming. Or did they? This isn't just another celebrity couple in crisis story. No, this is the unraveling of a modern-day royal fairy tale. The implosion of a rebellion that once captivated the world. And at the heart of it, a war over safety, identity, power, and two very different visions of what family really means. But here's the twist. The very thing Harry thought would bring them closer, the fight to return to the UK and keep their children safe, may be the thing tearing them apart. So what happened behind those closed doors in Montecito? Why did Prince Harry suddenly start meeting with lawyers, security consultants, and, according to some, divorce advisors? And what was Meghan's chilling reaction when she learned that Harry had secretly contacted palace officials again? If you think you know the story, think again. Because the clues have been hiding in plain sight. The subtle body language shifts. The solo red carpet appearances. The cryptic podcast comments. The not-so-subtle edits in the Netflix docuseries. And now, a storm of leaks that suggest something deeply emotional and potentially irreversible is happening between Meghan and Harry. But before we dive into the meat of this crisis, let's rewind. The love story that stunned the world. A prince falls for an American actress. A whirlwind romance. A wedding watched by billions. The couple walks away from the monarchy and walks straight into Hollywood. But was it ever really that simple? From the moment Harry and Meghan stepped down as senior royals, there was a sense that they were trying to build something together. A fresh start. A new empire. A redefined purpose. But what happens when two people with radically different expectations try to escape a world built on centuries of tradition? Harry, the man who once swore to protect his wife from the brutal tabloid culture that destroyed his mother, now finds himself fighting a different battle. One for his family's physical safety. One that brings him right back to the UK. And that is where the fault lines began to crack. The security dispute that no one saw coming. On the surface, it seemed simple. Prince Harry wanted to pay for his own armed security detail while visiting the UK. Logical, right? Not quite. The British Home Office refused. They claimed it would set a dangerous precedent. But Harry, driven by memories of his mother's tragic death and now a father of two, refused to back down. So he sued. What the public didn't know, until now, was that this legal battle wasn't just between Harry and the government. It was creating invisible fractures between him and Meghan. Sources close to the couple say that Meghan was never fully on board with the fight. Her view? Why return to a place that rejected us? To her, Harry's determination to bring their children back to Britain, even briefly, wasn't just risky. It was a betrayal of everything they had escaped. And that disagreement, one insider says, sparked the beginning of a long, quiet war inside their marriage. So here's the question. Can a couple survive when one wants to go home and the other never wants to look back? Because that's what's at stake here. Forget the fancy headlines. The real drama isn't about royal protocol or court battles. It's about two people, once deeply in love, now staring down the terrifying possibility that they've grown into different people with different dreams. Harry, the homesick soldier who misses his homeland. Meghan, the fiercely ambitious woman who carved out a new life and brand on her own terms. And in the middle, two children. Archie and Lilibet, innocent, unaware, at risk of being caught in a transatlantic tug-of-war. What was Harry really planning? Here's where it gets even more shocking. According to newly leaked documents and insider reports, Harry wasn't just fighting for security. He was also quietly exploring real estate opportunities in the UK. A possible private residence. A new base. Not for press events, but for extended family visits. Alone. Yes, alone. Meghan, reportedly, had no idea. When she found out, It sparked a confrontation so intense that staff at the Montecito estate were told to clear the main house for privacy. What happened in that conversation remains behind tightly closed doors. But multiple sources claim that Harry walked out that night. No driver, no security, just Harry and silence. But he wasn't gone long, because when he returned, he had something in his hand. A letter. One that, according to rumors, held the words, "If this is no longer working, we owe it to ourselves to be honest." Was it a threat? A plea? A cry for help? That's what no one can seem to answer. Because since that moment, Meghan has gone quiet. Her team stopped confirming public events. Joint appearances were suddenly postponed. Interviews were canceled. Even her podcast promo paused. And then came the real bombshell. Harry's team released a cryptic press statement. Ostensibly, it was about the security appeal. But hidden within the carefully crafted words were subtle phrases that spoke volumes. Protecting what matters most. Continued commitment to family. Decisions not taken lightly. To the casual observer, it was just another legal footnote. But to those reading between the lines, it was a goodbye letter. Not to the UK, not to the royal family, but, potentially, to his marriage. Why now? Why this moment? Timing is everything. And right now, the timing is screaming. We're at the start of a new year. A rebranding moment for Meghan. A legal crossroads for Harry. A pivotal age for their children. And behind it all, whispers, cold stares, closed doors, unsent invitations, and a growing sense among their closest friends that something irreversible has already begun. Even Hollywood insiders, once enchanted by the couple, are now treading carefully. Meghan's former allies have been unusually silent. Serena, Oprah, even Tyler Perry has pulled back. So here's what we're left with. A man torn between two homes, a woman guarding her independence, and a family teetering on the edge of a cliff. What comes next? A public statement? A separation? Or the fight of their lives to save what they built? Because the next move Harry makes will determine everything. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Why would a husband risk everything? His peace, his marriage, even his family. Just to return to a place that once hunted him like prey? That's the question swirling through every whisper coming out of Montecito. Because make no mistake, this wasn't just about security. It wasn't just about courtrooms or headlines. It was about control. Control over a future Prince Harry could no longer predict. Control over a past Meghan Markle wanted to bury. And control over a story that was beginning to spiral out of their hands. It all began, quietly, with a legal filing. A few lines in a London court, buried beneath layers of legal jargon. Prince Harry was suing the British government to reinstate his right to personal armed security while visiting the United Kingdom, at his own expense. Simple? Not even close. Because behind those words was a desperate message. Let me come home. Let me come back, safely. But home, as it turns out, had changed. And so had the person he was supposed to come back with. Why now? Why this fight? Why risk it all for what? That's the question Meghan reportedly asked him. And she didn't ask it gently. The first fracture. At first, Meghan tried to support Harry's decision. Or at least appear to. She smiled during a carefully staged walk with paparazzi in Beverly Hills. She wore the same sunglasses she wore during their UK engagements. The message was subtle but clear, unity. But behind the scenes, staff say the tone was drastically different. She didn't understand why he couldn't just let it go, one former aide claimed. She kept saying, "We build a new life here. Why are you still fighting for the old one?" Harry didn't see it that way. For him, this wasn't about old or new. It was about safety. It was about dignity. And, if we're being brutally honest, it was about proving to the world that he was still a prince, with or without the crown. But for Meghan, the risk outweighed the symbolism. "They're going to trap you," she allegedly told him during a heated exchange in late 2025. "They want to lure you back and tear you apart." And maybe, she wasn't entirely wrong. Harry's obsession grows. As weeks passed, Harry grew more obsessed with the case. He spent long hours on encrypted calls with his legal team in London. He reviewed old footage, surveillance records, even internal royal protocols. At night, he'd walk the grounds of their Montecito estate in silence, his phone glowing in his palm. Meghan, meanwhile, was focused on something else, building her empire. She'd just signed a deal with a major fashion house. Her new lifestyle brand was preparing for launch. And behind the scenes, her team was preparing a solo campaign, without Harry. The more he turned toward the UK, the more she turned away from it. And what started as a legal disagreement became a marital Cold War. The silent treatment. Those close to the couple say the silence became suffocating. Harry would leave the room when she entered. One friend confided. She stopped inviting him to her planning meetings. They were sharing a house, but not a life. Meghan allegedly began sleeping in the guest's suite on and off. Not because of an explosive argument, but because of something worse. Emotional distance. She didn't understand why he needed this so badly, and he didn't understand how she could just move on. A triggering memory. The turning point came in a seemingly innocent moment. Harry was scrolling through old footage of Diana's final years, documentary clips, interviews, grainy photos taken by paparazzi in Paris. He paused on an image that the world has seen 1,000 times. Princess Diana, alone in a car, moments before her death. It wasn't just grief that hit him. It was rage. Rage at a system that let it happen. Rage at a country that refused to protect his wife. Rage at the idea that his children might one day face the same fate. That night, he told Meghan, "I'm not backing down. I'll fight them in every court in the world if I have to." Her response? "You're fighting ghosts, Harry." He looked at her, tired, hollow, then walked away. The media smells blood. It didn't take long for the media to pick up on the cracks. Royal reporters noted the absence of joint photos. Paparazzi spotted Meghan dining alone with business associates. Speculation exploded. Trial separation. Secret arguments. Meghan pulls out of UK visit. And then, the court date was confirmed. Harry would appear, virtually, for a high-level hearing on the UK security issue. Alone. Meghan would not be attending. The press had a field day. But it was what Harry said in that hearing that stunned even the courtroom. "My family cannot be safe in Britain until they are guaranteed armed protection. If that cannot be provided, I must reconsider whether we can ever return." He used the word we. But Meghan wasn't beside him. Meghan's final plea. According to sources, the night after that court hearing, Meghan finally confronted him. Not with anger, not with sarcasm, but with raw desperation. "What are we doing, Harry? I don't want to live in fear. I don't want our lives ruled by this court battle. Can't we just move forward?" But Harry, exhausted and emotionally cornered, reportedly said, "This is me moving forward." That moment broke something. Not with screaming, not with slammed doors, but with silence. And then Harry disappeared for 48 hours. The secret meeting. It turns out, he was in San Francisco, meeting with a high-profile British security consultant. And, reportedly, an old contact from the UK diplomatic corps. What were they discussing? Leaked emails suggest Harry was exploring the option of establishing a private security corridor for future travel to the UK, with or without Meghan. When the news reached her, she didn't say a word. She simply called her assistant and canceled a joint public appearance the following week. Insiders say that was the moment her inner circle realized. This wasn't just a disagreement. It was a fracture. And for the first time, people started using the word divorce. But what comes next? You might be thinking, couldn't they fix this? After all, they've survived worse. Tabloids, betrayals, royal fallouts, Netflix backlash. But here's the thing. This isn't about outside attacks. This is about inside erosion. Two people, drifting, one looking homeward, the other building a different world. So what now? What happens when the man who gave up everything to protect his wife now finds himself protecting his children from her fears? And what if the palace sees this fracture as an opening? Because while Harry was distracted with legal filings, a quiet invitation was being prepared behind the gates of Windsor. And it would hit Meghan like a lightning strike. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What would you do if the person you loved was planning a second life and forgot to tell you? That's the question haunting Meghan Markle, if the leaks are true. Because as Prince Harry pushed forward in his battle for UK security, something else was quietly moving beneath the surface. Something he didn't announce in court. Something he didn't bring up in interviews. Something he didn't even discuss at the dinner table. According to royal insiders and real estate sources with access to confidential briefings, Prince Harry had begun secret inquiries into purchasing or leasing private property in the United Kingdom. Not for photo ops, Not for charity work, not even for royal events, but for living. Not with Meghan, not as a family, just him. But why? Why make this move in silence? Because that's what sets this moment apart. Harry, once branded the impulsive prince, had always worn his emotions on his sleeve. But this was calculated, strategic, hidden, a decision made in shadows, without his wife's knowledge or blessing. And when Meghan found out, everything detonated. The first clue, an email never meant to be seen. It started with an email, or more specifically, an email trail.